Hi, welcome back to the Winners in Business podcast, sponsored by Beachfront Custom Development, a leading experiential tech company that specializes in combining expertise in human behavior with superior technology development. I'm your host, Fred Solar, and today we have Bob Hackney, an incredible leader who brings over 20 years of experience in IT operations and system engineering with a track record for leading high-performing teams in the healthcare, fintech, and telecom industries. Today, he serves as the Chief Technology Officer for PerfectServe, where he remains aligned with their mission of uniting healthcare professionals with streamlined communications to facilitate better patient outcomes. In this episode, we'll dive into a number of topics relevant to every leader, including insights as to how artificial intelligence and large language models are helping shape the healthcare industry and how he's specifically leveraging the technology in his business. He shares some of his methods for addressing the technology talent gap and building great teams. He'll highlight what startups, business owners, and senior leaders should be doing to prepare themselves for resiliency and future success. And he even shares some great personal stories about being humble and open and in the moment and how that has shaped his career. So without further delay, let's jump in and learn from Bob Hackney. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Awesome. Great to be here, Fred. Thank you.
Absolutely. So before we dive into the technology and trends in the industry today, maybe you could give our audience a little more background on how you came to be the CTO at PerfectServe.
Yeah, I'd love to. As you said in the intro there, my foundation comes from the Marine Corps, and really everything routes back to what I learned there. And I've built a base in my professional career from that started in telecom. Basically in third world countries, I spent about 11 years building out telecom infrastructure, prepaid billing systems, all in an OEM way underneath major providers like Ericsson and so forth. That's really how I kind of transitioned from the Marine Corps into technology. And I moved from that into healthcare with DaVita. There, we focused on rapid growth that they were experiencing and the early days of transitioning from running on-prem data centers to cloud. We chose Google Cloud there, predominantly because of their flexibility and really dev-centric mindset aligned with our culture at DaVita. We rewrote our billing platforms, grew the team from a 24-person team to just over 374, focused on operations, infrastructure, engineering, architecture, and standards for cloud and what data centers we still had. Kind of pivoted that big company focus into the PE space and shifted to fintech for a while, staying in SaaS platforms focused on the financial space. There we consolidated a little over 12 data centers into AWS. Really the big difference for me when you think about cloud service providers between Google and AWS is AWS was much faster adoption, have a lot more tools to allow us to leverage the cloud quicker, first in lift and shift and then transformation into more cloud native capabilities versus the dev approach that Google took. Both very effective, just depends on your model. Also focused on merging a lot of M&A acquisitions into a more optimized delivery team. After I wrapped up the goals there, I stayed in PE, but got back to kind of my core in healthcare, which really resonates with me. And now we're focusing on clinical communication and collaboration and the workflow management space of SaaS services provided to healthcare providers.
Very, very cool. So a lot of change you've seen over the years. Tell me a little bit more about what PerfectServe does today.
We're focused on providing clinical communication and collaboration, think Teams, think the Zoom meeting that we're on now, and other ways that caregivers and care providers communicate with their patients, providing it in a way that's integrated with the EMR so that we can provide them the right data to have the right conversation in a secure and safe way. We also heavily leverage workflow management in our scheduling solutions so that we can communicate in the way that the caregiver wants to be communicated with and how, which is really important to work to ensure that we don't have schedule burnout. Our caregivers there's a higher demand than ever on them coming out of COVID and during COVID, and our tools allow them to be as efficient as possible in their communication and collaboration. And then from a scheduling perspective, optimize their workflow to be tailored specifically to the caregiver themselves.
Very neat, very needed in the industry too, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, let's talk about some of the disruptions you're seeing and you're currently facing, some of the challenges with enacting this vision state for PerfectServe. Maybe you could share some of the technology disruptions, the challenges you see today that your team is focused on, and then what you're forecasting on the horizon as it relates to what people should be prepared for moving forward.
Yeah, there's a lot of disruptions in the space. First thing comes to mind, security and healthcare. Last year was one of the most impactful years to healthcare, from a data breach, ransomware, et cetera. I mean, just watch the news and every week you hear something different. So for me as CTO, that is always the first thing that comes to mind, and it's constant and persistent. Thankfully, there's a lot of tools and capabilities and best practices that can help us combat that, but that is very much top of mind. The other real big disruptor that is top of mind for me is really AI, and more specifically, the conversational nature of large language models is opening up things in healthcare that really can increase accuracy and speed, improving healthcare in many ways. Just a couple that come top of mind for me. I think about diagnostics, AI capabilities for doctors to do things like analyze X-rays and MRIs and CT scans quickly and accurately, detect conditions like breast cancer. AI can help identify these subtle changes in vital signs that also can indicate health issues. I think about treatments, both at DaVita and here. The ability to help doctors tailor treatments, recommendations for patients based on their specific data. They call this precision medicine. I think AI and LLMs can significantly help in the treatment process. And then drug development, we're seeing tremendous progress in identifying molecular targets, designing drugs to affect them very specifically, and testing those drugs for safety and efficacy. And then lastly, where my company plays a lot in is administrative and medical documentation, repetitive tasks like billing and patient check-in, data input, freeing up healthcare professionals to focus on the patient. And then medical documentation, our ability to integrate into the ecosystem and provide that data in a way to assist communication and collaboration and scheduling is key areas where I feel we can be both disruptive and be a part of the disruption that we're seeing in healthcare.
Those are all great points. I mean, the use cases are endless, right? For AI and ML especially. Where are you injecting AI into your organization, whether it's in the build out of solutions, using it for day-to-day operations? Where are you leveraging that today?
Yeah, we're leveraging it in a couple areas. The one that is just top of mind for me is IVR and IVA, so intelligent voice and intelligent voice response, which is the historical way of mashing buttons and talking to an IVR. That is what is top of mind for me. I mean, AI can provide a much more natural conversational experience than what a traditional IVR can provide in just pushing buttons. I think that is going to be a critical differentiation here in the coming months, and we're looking at multiple solutions in that space. Improved routing and more predictive ability to assist a doctor and reducing wait times through an IVA. We think that's going to be another area of significant disruption. Also in problem solving and being able to have a little more predictive capabilities as opposed to following a menu tree of options. I think those are the areas that are really top of mind for me. We're also seeing in the security space where our ESOCs and EDR and XDRs are able to be much more predictive and clear out the white noise that generally makes it more difficult to respond to events that are occurring. We're seeing both in those areas. Another area that's top of mind for me in the AI space is RFPs and annual security assessments. We're constantly working with our customers to refresh our posture and communicate with them. And we're seeing where the conversational nature of AI can expedite that process and get the answers to our customers much quicker than the weeks or months that it traditionally takes to respond to those types of requests.
That's awesome. So it sounds like, though, that it's been well received. AI is actually being embraced within your organization. I talked to a lot of CTOs, CIOs, chief risk officers, et cetera. And there's this massive, I don't want to say it's massive resistance, but there's this real trepidation about AI and the challenge that it might bring from a security perspective. Do you feel that your organization is embracing it, in a methodical and calculated manner, or do you feel like there's still a lot of resistance to AI and what can be achieved?
That's a great question. And of course it's out there. It's new. It's like when we moved from physical data centers to the cloud, right? There was an adoption period and it really took years to get over that hump. It's not taking that long this time because of all the buzz in the market. There's so much communication. I mean, I was just out in San Francisco last week, and you couldn't travel 2 blocks without seeing a half a dozen different AI advertisements for absolutely everything. Microsoft's done an amazing job with Copilot to really push it out there so that everybody is, or not everybody, but a large population is interacting with AI daily today. I think that's helping us, move quicker. The other thing is technology has the responsibility to help the business understand the value and the risk. And I think that has, for me, been a key component in my career. Is I spend as much or more time translating technology into a way that the business can understand it and really touch and feel it. You talk about the UX experience and making sure that people really understand why technology matters, why AI matters, why it can make things better. That helps to speed that up. And the same thing goes with our CISO and legal and so forth. You invest that same time and you get the same result and are able to move faster.
Yeah, that's a great statement. Technology has responsibility to understand the value and risk. And I probably didn't say it as well as you did, but I think that's the title of this. Well, great. No, I appreciate you diving into a little bit of AI and ML. Everybody we talk to has some kind of a point of view around that. And I work with a number of organizations today that, there are some that are receptive and there's some that are continuing to push back. I mean, the other one you mentioned, security, right? Cybersecurity. Obviously, I think we actually were supposed to have this scheduled a week or two ago, but because of the incident with CrowdStrike and the patch that didn't go as planned, what are the biggest cybersecurity threats your industry is currently facing, and how are you leveraging technologies to enhance your position and posture on that?
Wow, it's a large topic. We could probably spend a whole podcast just on that alone. We're doing all the obvious things you would expect: endpoint, layer and defense, our EDR, XDR. When you think about the CrowdStrike event, as much as that event is, I think the latest numbers I saw was like 1.9 billion in just healthcare alone is the impact of that event. It highlights how integrated technology is and critical it is, but also how vulnerable we can be to it. I will say, we are a CrowdStrike customer. We were impacted by it. We're also an Agile Blue customer and ended up pivoting faster to the latter with Agile Blue. through that event, but they handled it pretty well. They communicated well. Within, I want to say, 30 to 40 minutes, they were communicating publicly about what was happening. And I think that speaks to how fast technology moves now, which allowed a lot of customers like us to adjust and react to it. The other thing is, having cloud infrastructure and cloud native infrastructure gives you a tremendous amount of flexibility in situations like that, whether they're self-induced or induced by a vendor. It's not like the old days where you had two data centers and you kept them geographically separate from each other. We're all running in basically one of three predominant cloud providers nowadays, and you have to have highly resilient infrastructure, whether it's from a security, how you promote and release, or just keep your systems healthy.
Awesome. Great. So you mentioned a couple of different trends that I talk to leaders like yourself around, AI, cybersecurity, but in your role, there's also a tech talent shortage at this stage, right? How are you addressing that, and also upskilling your workforce in the meantime, right? There's a lot of enablement that needs to get done. Technology's changing just extremely rapidly, and it's hard to keep up. How are you doing that at PerfectServe, and how have you done that in the past?
As I've matured in my career, it's evolved. But the one thing that's been consistent is, at the end of the day, it's rarely a technology problem, and it's predominantly a human challenge. And what I mean by that is having a highly empowered and safe environment for your team to operate in produces the greatest results. And I know that's like stratosphere level statement, but let me drill it down a little bit. It's not always the loudest voice or the most senior voice that has the best ideas. Sometimes it's a younger up and coming admin or whatever engineer that is staying current, or maybe gone through some learning recently that gives them the best idea. So I have found in speaking last as much as I can in meetings and hearing from the broader team and creating an ecosystem where people feel empowered to express their ideas and thoughts, and listening to them is the strongest way to retain the right talent. People quit because of their boss first, and then a whole long list of other things, in my opinion, and I've never lost sight of that. That's how I think about it first.
It's a great perspective, right? I think that also encompasses what you talked about, the diversity of teams as well, right? I think when we were first coming up in our business careers, it was, at least from my perspective, I was trying to find a lot of the common people, right? Exactly like me, exactly, with the same background information, et cetera. And I think, that pendulum is completely swung, where you need that collaboration of different perspectives and talent, skills, and things of that nature. And that's really a great art, in my opinion, to building teams. What other things besides the diversity side of it do you look for when you're building out your team, and from that perspective?
I look for individuals that are open and able to evolve fast, and not afraid to fail. Creating an environment where people can fail fast and learn from it, adjust, and move on. It all comes from empowered and safe. When you've achieved that, then you want to keep in diverse talent. And when I mean diverse, it's all aspects of diversity. It's just not their ethnicity or male or female or whatever. It's, some are military, non-military, highly educated, highly experienced. All of those things contribute to a better work product in the end, in my opinion. And that's really, when I'm interviewing or when I'm looking for my first team, those that directly report into me, I want those that are radically different than me, that challenge me in the areas that I'm weak, and allow us to have the most creative ideas to solve whatever problems we're faced with.
That's excellent advice. What strategies do you typically employ to attract and retain the top talent?
I'm really fortunate to have a great network of people around me that have been with me for 2 or 3 different companies, and they cultivate the same type of collaborative, like people want to work with those that create those kinds of environments. So first and foremost, that has been, if I have a secret sauce, is I've got a great group of individuals that have been with me for several companies, and they have folks that have been with them for several companies. Secondly, I like really diverse opinions. There's people on my staff that are not deep in technical, but very deep in developing the right organizational structure in humans. And then there's others that are extremely deep in technical and maybe not as strong in, extroverted and being highly communicative. And the blend of those really helps. And I think now post-COVID, where you don't meet anymore. I just came from a meeting last week where some people, it was the first time they had come together in person since before COVID. And some had been hired during and post-COVID and never met in person, only like the way you and I are interacting today. So you really have to think about how you convey your vision, direction, and guidance virtually versus a lot of one-on-one personal interaction. So that changes the way I recruit too.
Very interesting. I think that also has an effect on when you're designing, when you're developing your solutions and your applications, right? These multiple different viewpoints and way of handling things. I mean, especially when you talk about customer experience, right? The end user, the UI, the UX. People learn differently. Some people like a lot of information. Some people don't. Can you give us an example of what PerfectServe and maybe your team's focused on as it relates to driving initiatives around the CX side of the business?
Yeah, what our secret sauce is, we're a SaaS provider and we provide the solutions that our hospital systems use. However, we are deeply, deeply ingrained into the healthcare systems that we support. We go on site, we understand how they're using our services. Many of our leaders and developers and support and implementation folks come from hospital systems and have used our products in the past. And then we've been able to, as they've developed in their career and move them into technology and have a bend towards technology, recruit from there. I would say that the depth of which we understand how a doctor, a nurse, a caregiver uses our systems is part of our secret sauce, and it shows up in everything we do. There's a reason why we're rated the way we are in class and have the customer feedback that we have, is because we truly understand that deeply, and that's core to the degree that our product owners are almost exclusively recruited from our support and implementation teams as they move up their career trajectory. Our career path is designed as such that we intend for all of our product owners to come out of our support and implementation teams, so that we never lose sight of every feature, every change to our platform has to be targeted towards making a caregiver's life easier, faster, and better.
Very, very unique. Very cool. So I assume then you're tracking like adoption, consumption, user engagement, things of that nature with the solution. Are those some of the metrics that you're focused on from a customer experience perspective?
Yeah, we absolutely do. We get a lot of customer feedback. We hold annual summits. We use tools like Pendo and so forth to dig out some of those metrics are a little harder to get through a conversation.
Yeah.
Every feature that we roll out, we follow it up with internal metrics to see its adoption and understand the why behind it. Did it not achieve exactly what we wanted? Do we need to tweak the flow a little bit to make sure it has? Because at the end of the day, I think of technology like It can be a picture in the dark if people don't use it, and it can be the greatest technology there is. But if they're not using it, what value are you really producing? And have to challenge. And again, that comes from, we want to create a place where it's safe to challenge any and everything, so that we make sure we're truly providing. Is it's very easy to be focused on the tech and not the value or how we're going to make a caregiver's life better with what we're doing.
Awesome. Thank you. So obviously you have a breadth of PerfectServe's mission and where they're going, but let's shift a little bit and look at you specifically. If you were evaluating the economic technology landscape today, what should business owners, senior leaders be doing to become more innovative and more resilient long term for that next level of success?
Man, that's a great question. When I think about that, my advice to business owners, startups, aspiring entrepreneurs, or any of the above, first to embrace scalable technology, so that you can streamline your operations, increase efficiency, and drive the result or vision of what it is you want to create. Because it starts with you cannot do pretty much anything in the modern world without technology deeply ingrained in it. So first, embrace it. Second, build a strong technical team capable of driving the innovation or solving whatever business challenge that you're targeting. Like, you've got to have that team, and it needs to be deeply ingrained in your business. Like, they need to understand the business, understand the value, so that their sole purpose is to solve whatever business challenge that you are facing. And then the next would be, invest in research and development. Stay as ahead as you can of technical advancements, adopting and constantly changing with the market, because it changes so rapidly. And you just have to have a focus on that. Lastly, I think I'd leave them with, foster a culture of innovation, willingness to adapt technology achievements, and just give your business the most competitive edge you can in this fast-paced market.
So those are all great points of insight and guidance, right? And I think they're really important. I think one thing that you struck a chord on is the innovation R&D. How do you balance that need for innovation and that investment in R&D with the pressures of day-to-day operations?
Yeah, it's always a competition, right? I think it's all about the ROI. If you can do R&D fast, nimble, and as cost efficient as possible, and then show what the result is, get that feedback loop back to the business as quick as possible so that they can feel it and touch it. And that will allow it to be sustained to the point of actually solving whatever problem it is you're solving. So often technology can get off on a tangent and do R&D for the sake of making technology better. And that's cool, and that's the space I'm in, and obviously I geek out about that. But I can't lose sight on, it's got to directly correlate to this quarter or this year's business objectives. Otherwise, you're just not going to have the sustained investment that you need to realize those things. It's got to be fast, quick, and tied to their objectives.
Great points. Thank you. Yeah, that's always the hard thing, right? It's like the short-term, day-to-day business, and then how do you innovate and develop a roadmap for the future? Let me ask you this question. Where do you, outside of your own experience, where do you learn and gain your guidance, right? Obviously, you're well-versed in technology, but where are you going? Partners, thought leaders, mentors, publications? Where do you go to learn?
Yeah, I've got several mentors that have been there and done that in their career, previous CIOs and CTOs that I regularly stay in touch with. Obviously, a lot of reading. I'm an Audible guy, so I've always got an Audible book going on whatever the latest things are. And sometimes I'll even go back 10 or 15 years into books that were hot then and revisit them, because it's funny, we repackage data in ways that make it more applicable today, but it's a lot of the same themes over and over again. And then I have great partnerships with value-add resellers and partners like AWS and others that are heavily invested in my success. I think you can sum all that up in staying humble and open. As I was taught at DaVita, feedback is a gift. Sometimes I don't like it. Sometimes it hits me right between the eyes. Yeah. It's still a gift nevertheless. And it's more important to be open, because there's no lack for data out there. It's more important to be open to hearing it and transparently looking at yourself on how can you iterate and be a better leader, human, and partner for your business.
That's awesome. Thank you. So back to advice. I mean, that was really good advice, but let's think about this as a fellow father and leader. What advice are you giving your next generation, not only your kids, but your grandchildren, as they prepare for the future?
Be in the moment is the first thing that comes to mind. I'll give you a quick analogy. In DaVita, they invested a lot in the executive leadership team, and there was a course where the objective was to run, climb up a telephone pole, stand at the top, and then jump off. And you're on a rope, and they land you on the ground, right? I went, being a Marine, I charged through the exercise, went to the top, jumped off, did everything, volunteered, went first, and all that great stuff. And the best advice I was given, the coach that was walking us through that experience said, "Hey, Bob, what did you see at the top of that pole?" It's like, I didn't see anything. The objective was to climb the pole and jump off the pole. And he's like, but what would have happened if you stopped at the top and paused for a minute and just observed and see what's happening around you? And it really resonated with me. And that's the number one thing I would say to those that are early in their career is be in the moment, enjoy what you're going through today, and don't rush to get to tomorrow, because the knowledge and experience is truly gleaned in the moment, not tomorrow and not yesterday.
And I think your analogy is incredibly, and I can see it too, right? I've been in the same boat where it's something you've done time and time again, and you want to go improve your mettle, you want to go prove you still got it, and you can do it as quickly as possible. And at some point you're just like, wow, that went really quickly. And I wish I would have what did it prove to go and do it as fast as I could do? Nobody really cared. But what I did miss was, the forest through the trees, if you will. So it was thank you for that. That was a great piece of advice. And it's always hard too, when you're talking about your children, right? Is like, because you're trying to, especially your children, your grandchildren, you're trying to make sure that they continue to progress every day and get better and learn and grow and develop as quickly as possible and succeed. And sometimes you go fast by going slow. What's the adage? It's steady is slow is steady and steady is fast. Isn't yeah, something like that. But that's it, right? So thank you. We're almost at the time here, but I do have probably one other question I'd love to learn a little bit more about is like, what gets you excited about PerfectServe, and how are you what are you doing as an organization to really envision or get to that envisioned future state? Like, when you wake up in the morning, what gets you energized?
Yeah. I think the thing that energizes me most about PerfectServe is that our focus on speed to care is in our DNA. There's 30,000 plus healthcare organizations that rely upon our SaaS services to communicate, collaborate, and schedule their interactions effectively. And our relentless focus on that, providing the workflows that help remove and reduce IT burdens on nurses and caregivers, help save their money so they can drive better clinical outcomes through a deeper partnership with companies like PerfectServe and others, and our ability to integrate into a really complex ecosystem with other EMRs brings direct value to our caregivers. And that's what gets me up every day. I love the healthcare space where I know that the technology that me and my team are bringing to bear is truly making the quality of a human being lives better. That drives me every day. It's not just about a bottom line or about cool tech. At the end of the day, we make the life of our critical caregivers a little bit better through technology, and are constantly to make that focused on making that better over time.
That's awesome. Well, Bob, thank you. Thank you for being our guest today. I think we've learned a lot of good insights and valuable lessons. I think we talked about some of the technology trends that are certainly important and facing, our roles and making it difficult. And if we embrace them in the right manner, could make them a lot easier and better for the future. We talked about the inclusivity of diverse opinions and such as it relates to teams and how that makes it better. I'll tell you, I think my favorite insight that I garnered today wasn't around technology. It was about being in the moment. It's hard for me because I'm such a type A plus person that it's I've never really probably given that to my oldest daughter or my youngest daughter for that matter. But that's great advice. So thank you very much for joining us today on the Winners in Business podcast.